There's a strange kind of hatred that doesn't announce itself. It has no clear beginning, no argument, no betrayal. One day, you simply feel it. The cold tone, the passive aggression, the way their energy shifts the moment you walk into the room. And you start asking yourself the wrong question: what did I do? Stoic philosophy offers a sharper truth. Some people don't hate you because of your actions. They hate you because of your presence. You become a mirror they didn't ask for. A reminder of discipline they lack. Of courage they postponed. Of growth they avoided. You don't need to speak loudly. You don't need to dominate the room. Your calm alone unsettles them. Why? Because when someone lives in reaction, insecurity, or unfulfilled potential, your self-control feels like judgment, even when you never judge them. This kind of hatred is irrational, but it is not random. It follows patterns, predictable behaviors, subtle signals. And once you learn to recognize these signs, something powerful happens. You stop internalizing their hostility. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining yourself. Marcus Aurelius warned us, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not because you are weak, but because your strength exposes theirs. Today, we're breaking down behaviors shared by people who hate you for no reason. Not so you can fight them, not so you can confront them, but so you can move through life untouched, focused, and unbothered, exactly as the Stoics intended. Before we dive in, I want to share something personal. I get a lot of messages from people who feel surrounded by fake friends, constant drama, or emotional chaos, and they just want a place to be real. That's why I created a Patreon community, a private space where you can open up, share what you're going through, and get my personal insights. It's also where you can request specific video topics. If there's something you're struggling with that you want me to break down here on Stoic Code, that's the place to ask. If you're serious about growth, peace, and self-awareness, you'll fit right in. The link is below. And if you're new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Code. It helps more people find these lessons and builds this community of clarity and calm. Now, let's get into it. 1. They constantly minimize your achievements. One of the clearest signs that someone hates you for no real reason is how they react when you succeed. Not with congratulations, not with curiosity, but with dismissal. You achieve something meaningful, a promotion, a personal breakthrough, a discipline you've maintained, a goal you quietly reached, and instead of acknowledging the effort behind it, they immediately shrink it. It's not that hard. Anyone could do that. You just got lucky. That doesn't really mean much. At first, it feels confusing. You weren't seeking validation. You weren't bragging. You may not have even mentioned it directly, someone else did. Yet, the minimization arrives instantly, almost reflexively. This behavior is not accidental. It is defensive. When someone constantly minimizes your achievements, what they are really doing is protecting their ego. Your progress forces them to confront an uncomfortable comparison: if you can do it, why didn't they? Instead of facing that question honestly, they reduce the value of your success so they don't have to reevaluate their own choices. Stoic philosophy teaches that people rarely hate external events, they hate what those events reveal about themselves. Your achievement becomes a mirror, and they don't like the reflection. What makes this behavior especially revealing is its consistency. They don't do it once, they do it every time. No matter how small or large your progress is, the response is the same: downplay, dismiss, deflect. If you start a business, they say the market is easy. If you get in shape, they say genetics helped. If you improve mentally, they say you've changed, not in a good way. Notice the pattern: your effort is erased. And effort is dangerous to insecure people because effort proves that growth is possible. Imagine this: you've spent months, maybe years, working on yourself, waking up early, learning new skills, saying no to distractions, quietly improving while others stayed comfortable. Eventually, it shows. You land a better opportunity. People notice, respect follows. Now, imagine sharing this moment in a small group. You're calm about it, no bragging, just honest. One person responds with enthusiasm. Another congratulates you. But then there's that person. They lean back and smirk slightly. Oh, that. My cousin did something similar in half the time. Or, yeah, but that field isn't that competitive. Or worse, just don't get too comfortable. Things change. Notice what just happened. They didn't attack you directly. They attacked the meaning of your success. This is how resentment operates, quietly, strategically, disguised as realism. To them, your win feels like a loss, not because you took anything from them, but because your discipline exposes their stagnation. Why is this behavior so common? People who hate you for no reason often live with unresolved regret. They once had ambition, plans, a version of themselves they abandoned. When they see you moving forward, it reopens an old wound. Instead of saying, I wish I had done that, they say, it's not that impressive. Minimization is emotional self-defense. Marcus Aurelius wrote, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Your achievement disturbs them because of the view it forces upon them. Not all minimization is obvious. Some of it is disguised as concern or realism. I'm just saying, don't get your hopes up. That's good, but make sure you stay humble. Success can change people. On the surface, these sound reasonable. Underneath, they are attempts to pull you back down to a level that feels safe to them. They are uncomfortable with the idea that you might rise beyond the dynamic they're used to. Here's the key, you do nothing. You don't defend your achievement. You don't explain how hard it was. You don't try to convince them of its value. Why? Because people who minimize your success are not seeking truth. They are seeking relief from their own discomfort. The Stoics understood this well. True confidence does not argue, it observes. Your job is not to make them see your worth. Your job is to continue becoming undeniable. When you stop reacting, something powerful happens. They lose the emotional leverage they were hoping for. Your calm becomes confirmation. And eventually, whether they admit it or not, your continued progress speaks louder than any validation ever could. Remember this, people who celebrate your wins don't fear your growth. People who minimize them do. And fear, when left unexamined, often turns into hatred even when you did nothing wrong. 2. They feel threatened by your silence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. To a grounded mind, silence means composure, self-control, and clarity. But to an insecure or hostile mind, silence feels like danger. People who hate you for no reason are often deeply unsettled by the fact that you don't explain yourself, don't overshare, and don't react on demand. Your silence interrupts the emotional feedback loop they rely on. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how you feel about them. They don't know how to position themselves around you. And that uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. Most people use words as a form of control. They talk to test, to probe, to extract reactions. When you remain silent, you deny them information. And information is power. Stoic philosophy teaches that we always have control over two things, our judgments and our responses. Silence is the ultimate response because it refuses to participate in unnecessary emotional exchanges. To someone who thrives on comparison, gossip, or subtle dominance games, your quiet presence feels like resistance. People who feel threatened by your silence often assume one of three things, that you are judging them, that you are hiding something, or that you believe you are superior. Even when none of these are true, they project their own internal chaos onto your calm, because they would only stay silent if they were plotting, resenting, or withholding. They assume you are doing the same. In reality, your silence may simply mean you are at peace. But peace is foreign and threatening to those who live in constant emotional noise. Seneca warned that a person who talks too much often says too little of value. Silence, by contrast, forces others to confront their own thoughts, and many people don't like what they hear when the noise stops. Their discomfort doesn't stay hidden for long. It leaks out in behavior. They begin to question you indirectly. Why are you so quiet? Are you okay? You're acting strange lately. What they are really asking is, why can't I read you? Why can't I control the interaction? Sometimes the questioning becomes accusation. You think you're better than everyone. You're being distant on purpose. You're hiding something. Your silence becomes a crime they feel entitled to solve. Other times, they provoke you deliberately. They make passive-aggressive comments. They test boundaries. They say things designed to pull a reaction out of you, not because they want communication, but because they want confirmation that they still matter in your emotional world. When you don't react, the hostility increases. Imagine this scenario: you're in a work or social environment. You do your part, speak when necessary, and otherwise remain calm and reserved. You don't gossip. You don't overshare personal struggles. You don't complain. At first, people are neutral. Then someone begins watching you more closely. They notice you don't jump into conversations. You don't laugh loudly at their jokes. You don't defend yourself when lightly teased. Soon the comments start. Why are you always so quiet? You never say anything. You must be thinking something. What changed? Nothing, except their realization that they can't access you. To someone insecure, access equals validation. When they don't get it, they interpret your silence as rejection or superiority. Their resentment grows not because you harmed them, but because you didn't feed their need for engagement. People who hate your silence often depend on external reactions to regulate their emotions. They need agreement to feel secure, attention to feel relevant, conflict to feel powerful. Your silence denies all three. You don't argue, so they can't win. You don't react, so they can't provoke. You don't explain, so they can't dissect you. This creates a power imbalance they don't know how to handle. Epictetus taught that if you wish to be invincible, make sure your happiness does not depend on things outside your control. Silence is a manifestation of this principle. It signals that your emotional state is self-governed, and that autonomy is deeply unsettling to those who live through others. When silence doesn't work in their favor, they escalate. They may talk about you behind your back, misinterpret your quietness as arrogance, frame you as cold or difficult, attempt to turn others against you. This is not communication. It is retaliation. They are punishing you for not playing the role they expected, the reactive one, the explain yourself one, the emotionally available one. In truth, they feel rejected by your boundaries even though you never rejected them. The Stoics understood silence as strength, not avoidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Silence is often the physical expression of that choice. You don't owe everyone access to your thoughts. You don't owe explanations for your calm. You don't owe emotional labor to those who haven't earned it. When someone resents your silence, it reveals more about their internal instability than your character. There's an important distinction here: silence is not hostility. You can be polite without being porous, respectful without being revealing, present without being performative. Your silence is not a weapon, it is a filter. Those who respect it will feel safe around you. Those who resent it will expose themselves. And that is the quiet power of silence. Remember this: people who are comfortable with themselves are comfortable with your silence. People who hate you for no reason are not, because your quiet reminds them of a truth they avoid: not everyone needs noise to exist, and not everyone can handle that. 3. They pretend you don't exist. One of the most revealing forms of quiet hostility is not open conflict, it's erasure. People who hate you for no reason often don't argue with you. They don't confront you. They don't even acknowledge you. Instead, they act as if you're invisible. No greeting, no eye contact, no response to your presence. At first, this behavior feels confusing, even childish. You may wonder if you offended them, if you missed a social cue, if you should clear the air. But this silence is not accidental, and it's not indifference. It's intentional. Pretending you don't exist is a psychological tactic used by people who feel threatened but powerless. They can't dominate you. They can't control you. They can't provoke a reaction. So they attempt something else: removal. Human beings are wired for recognition. Being acknowledged affirms our place in a group. When someone refuses to acknowledge you, it creates discomfort, and they know this. That's the point. People who pretend you don't exist are trying to punish you emotionally without appearing aggressive. It allows them to maintain plausible deniability while still expressing resentment. If confronted, they can say, "I didn't notice, I'm just busy, you're overthinking." But internally, the message they want to send is clear: you don't matter. Stoic philosophy recognizes this tactic as an attempt to control what is outside their reach: your sense of self. This behavior usually appears after one of three things: you set a boundary, you stop seeking their approval, or you surpass them in some way. You didn't insult them. You didn't attack them. You simply removed your dependence. And that independence feels like rejection to someone who measures their worth through influence over others. Epictetus taught that when people lose power over you, they often try to punish you for it. Ignoring you becomes their final tool. How it looks in real life: you walk into a room, you greet everyone, except they don't respond. In group settings, they address everyone around you, but skip you entirely. They speak about plans in front of you, but never include you. They respond to messages in group chats while leaving yours unread. If you speak, they act as if they didn't hear you. This behavior is subtle enough to deny, but sharp enough to feel. And that's why it works, at least on people who still seek validation. People who pretend you don't exist are often deeply conflicted. On one level, they want your attention. On another, they resent the fact that they want it. So they choose erasure, a way to regain a sense of control without vulnerability. If they can make you feel small, uncertain, or desperate for acknowledgement, they feel powerful again. But here's the paradox: the very act of ignoring you proves that you matter to them. Indifference doesn't require effort, erasure does. Marcus Aurelius observed that people do wrong out of ignorance. In this case, the ignorance is believing that denying someone recognition can restore their own sense of worth. Open conflict at least acknowledges your existence. Erasure attacks something deeper: your social identity. It makes you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Am I imagining this? Should I fix it? That self-doubt is what they're hoping for. But Stoic wisdom reminds us, your worth is not granted by others' acknowledgement. Silence from insecure people is not a verdict, it's a confession. If pretending you don't exist fails to get a reaction, they may escalate subtly: rolling eyes when you speak, speaking over you, acknowledging everyone except you, acting surprised when others engage with you. Each move is designed to isolate you socially, not because you're dangerous, but because your composure exposes their insecurity. The Stoic response is not confrontation. It is unbothered presence. You continue to be polite. You acknowledge others. You don't chase acknowledgement. You don't withdraw in shame. You don't overcompensate. Why? Because nothing frustrates someone seeking control more than realizing they failed to disturb your inner state. Seneca wrote that the greatest revenge is to be unlike the one who harmed you. In this case, the revenge is dignity. When you remain calm, self-possessed, and unaffected, their tactic collapses. They wanted you to feel erased. Instead, you became untouchable. People who pretend you don't exist are telling you something important: they feel smaller in your presence. They feel exposed by your self-respect. They feel powerless against your emotional independence. So they try to remove you symbolically. But here is the Stoic truth they cannot escape: a person who is whole does not disappear when ignored. Only those who depend on validation do. Let them pretend you don't exist. You don't need to be seen by insecure eyes to be real. For they turn others against you. When someone hates you for no reason, they rarely confront you directly. Direct confrontation requires courage, clarity, and accountability. So instead, they choose something safer: influence. They don't attack you to your face, they attack your reputation behind your back. This is one of the most damaging behaviors because it works quietly, slowly, and often invisibly. By the time you notice something is wrong, the atmosphere around you has already changed. Conversations stop when you enter the room. People act distant without explanation. Energy shifts, but no one tells you why. This is not coincidence. This is narrative control. People who turn others against you are driven by fear. Fear that they cannot defeat you openly. So they must isolate you socially. They feel threatened by your presence, your growth, or your independence. But they lack the confidence to address it directly. So they recruit others. This gives them two forms of comfort: validation, others agreeing makes their resentment feel justified, and protection. If many people doubt you, they don't have to face you alone. Stoic philosophy teaches that weak characters seek strength through numbers. When someone cannot stand on truth, they stand on consensus. This rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens in fragments. A comment here, I don't know, something feels off about them. A suggestion there, they're nice, but I wouldn't fully trust them. A story framed just right, I'm not saying they meant it that way. Notice the language, they never accuse directly. They imply. They plant doubt, because implications spread faster than facts. They rely on the fact that most people avoid conflict and prefer easy explanations. Once doubt exists, people start interpreting your actions through that distorted lens. Your silence becomes arrogance. Your confidence becomes ego. Your boundaries become attitude. And you were never given the chance to explain. Imagine you're in a shared environment at work, family, or social circles. You stay focused. You don't gossip. You mind your business. Meanwhile, someone who resents you begins speaking to others privately. They mention your name casually. They recall a moment, slightly altered. They add emotional tone without evidence. Soon, people start treating you differently. They're polite but guarded. Invitations disappear. Information stops flowing. You feel it before you understand it. This is the goal: social isolation without visible fingerprints. Humans are social beings. Being misunderstood by one person is tolerable. Being misunderstood by many is destabilizing. That's why this tactic is so effective, and so revealing. People who turn others against you are not confident in their position. If they were, they wouldn't need an audience. Marcus Aurelius warned that people do wrong because they believe it benefits them. In this case, they believe controlling the story will restore their sense of superiority. But it never does. The manipulator presents themselves as concerned, honest, or protective. I'm just looking out for you. I didn't want to say anything, but I could be wrong. These phrases lower defenses. They make the listener feel informed, special, chosen. In reality, the manipulator is outsourcing their insecurity. They can't regulate their own emotions, so they spread them. Stoicism teaches restraint, not passivity. You do not chase rumors. You do not plead for clarity. You do not explain yourself to people who chose gossip over conversation. Why? Because truth does not require urgency. Over time, consistent behavior exposes manipulation. People notice patterns. They notice who speaks and who builds, who stirs chaos and who stays composed. Your job is to remain predictable in character, not reactive in emotion. Seneca wrote that time reveals what reason cannot. Let time work for you. Those who build alliances through manipulation eventually lose them. Why? Because the same person who speaks about you will one day speak about them. Distrust follows the manipulator, even if it takes time. And when the fog clears, one thing remains: your integrity. People who turn others against you are not powerful. They are afraid. Afraid that if people saw you clearly, their influence would vanish. So they distort the view. Let them. A reputation built on truth outlives a narrative built on fear. You don't need to control the story when your life tells it for you. 5. They resent your growth. One of the quietest but most persistent forms of hatred is resentment toward your growth. These are not strangers. They are often people who knew you before. People who were comfortable with the old version of you. They don't hate you because you harmed them, they hate you because you changed, and they didn't. Growth disrupts unspoken agreements. At some point, without ever saying it out loud, people form expectations about who you are allowed to be. When you evolve beyond that version, it creates tension they never prepared for. Stoic philosophy teaches that change is the natural order of life. But many people fear change, especially when it happens in someone else, because it forces comparison. Your growth confronts them with three uncomfortable realities. Growth was possible all along, they chose comfort over effort, and their excuses are no longer convincing. Instead of facing these truths, resentment steps in. Resentment allows them to say, "You think you're better than us now," instead of, "I didn't grow when I could have." It's easier to resent progress than to replicate it. At first, it's subtle. They mention how you've changed. They say you're different now. They imply you've lost something: humility, warmth, relatability. These comments aren't observations, they're accusations disguised as concern. Your discipline becomes obsession. Your boundaries become distance. Your focus becomes coldness. They redefine your improvement as a flaw because acknowledging it as growth would require self-reflection. Imagine someone who once bonded with you over complaining, distractions, or shared limitations. Then you decide to shift. You wake up earlier. You stop engaging in negativity. You invest in yourself quietly. At first they joke about it. Then they criticize it. Eventually they resent it. Why? Because your growth ended a shared identity they relied on. You didn't just move forward, you moved away from the version of life that kept them comfortable. And comfort hates being exposed. Your growth feels personal to them even though it has nothing to do with them. They interpret your progress as rejection, not because you rejected them, but because you no longer need the same validation, habits, or approval. To insecure people, independence feels like abandonment. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that people do not act against us intentionally, they act according to what seems good to them. Resentment feels good because it protects their ego from responsibility. If left unchecked, resentment evolves. First, they question your motives. Then, they minimize your achievements. Then, they distance themselves. Finally, they may sabotage or undermine you, not because you threatened them, but because your continued growth widens the gap between who they are and who they hope to be. And that gap becomes unbearable. The Stoic response is acceptance, not explanation. You don't convince people that your growth is genuine. You don't apologize for evolving. You don't slow down to preserve familiarity. Why? Because growth that requires permission is not growth, it's negotiation. Epictetus taught that if you want to improve, you must be willing to be misunderstood for a time. This is one of those times. Those who truly care will adjust. Those who resent you will reveal themselves. Both outcomes are useful. Some people prefer the version of you that was easier to feel superior to. Some people benefited from your self-doubt. Some people relied on you staying small. Your growth disrupts those dynamics, and resentment is their way of mourning the loss of control. You were never meant to remain who you were to make others comfortable. Life moves forward. So should you. If someone resents your growth, it is not a signal to stop. It is confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. Grow anyway. Evolve anyway. Leave resentment behind. It cannot follow where you're going. 6. They interpret your peace as arrogance. There is a strange accusation that only calm people receive. Not because they boast, not because they dominate conversations, not because they seek attention, but because they are at peace. People who hate you for no reason often mislabel your inner stability as arrogance. Your calm becomes attitude. Your emotional restraint becomes ego. Your lack of reaction becomes thinking you're better than everyone. This misunderstanding is not accidental. It is psychological. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace is self-mastery. But to those who live in constant emotional turbulence, self-mastery looks unnatural, even threatening. People who interpret your peace as arrogance often equate worth with noise. They believe value must be announced, emotions must be displayed, struggles must be shared loudly. When you don't participate in this emotional exhibition, they assume superiority, because that is how they would behave if they felt secure. They project their own definitions onto you. If they were calm, it would mean dominance. If they were quiet, it would mean judgment. If they were unbothered, it would mean indifference. So they assume the same of you. In truth, your peace is not about them at all. It often begins with subtle comments. You've changed. You're acting brand new. You don't react like you used to. Soon the tone sharpens. You think you're better than everyone now. You're so cold lately. Success got to your head. None of these statements are observations. They are emotional reactions to the loss of access they once had. Your calm signals that you no longer need external validation. And that makes insecure people feel excluded even though you excluded no one. Imagine a situation where chaos is expected. Someone complains, others pile on emotionally. Drama spreads. You listen calmly. You don't escalate. You don't choose sides. Instead of appreciating your composure, someone labels you. Why do you act like nothing bothers you? Must be nice to think you're above all this. Your refusal to join the emotional chaos feels like a silent rebuke to those drowning it. Your peace becomes a mirror, and they don't like what it reflects. Calling you arrogant serves two purposes for them. It discredits your calm without requiring self-reflection, and it protects their ego from comparison. If your peace is arrogance, then they don't need to ask why they lack it. If your restraint is ego, then their emotional reactions feel justified. This is how insecurity defends itself. Marcus Aurelius warned that people resent those who live according to reason because reason exposes excess. At first they tease, then they criticize, eventually they resent. Why? Because your peace remains consistent. You don't react to insults. You don't collapse under pressure. You don't explain yourself. Each moment of composure reinforces the contrast between your inner order and their inner chaos. And comparison, when avoided, turns into hostility. The Stoic response is quiet consistency. You don't correct their interpretation. You don't convince them of your humility. You don't trade peace for approval. Epictetus taught that if someone speaks badly of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's false, ignore it. Your peace needs no defense. True arrogance demands attention. True arrogance seeks dominance. True arrogance cannot tolerate silence. Peace does none of this. Those who interpret your peace as arrogance are not reacting to you. They are reacting to what they lack. They live in reaction, you live in intention. They confuse the two because they've never experienced the second. You are not responsible for how others label your calm. If peace makes someone uncomfortable, that is not a flaw in your character. It is a reflection of their inner unrest. Remain steady. Remain grounded. Remain unbothered. Peace that looks like arrogance to the insecure is simply strength. They don't understand, and understanding is not required for you to keep it. 7. They feel entitled to your attention. One of the most revealing signs that someone hates you for no reason is their belief that your time, energy, and emotional availability belong to them. Not because you promised it, not because you owe it, but because they grew accustomed to having access. When that access changes, when you stop explaining yourself, stop responding instantly, stop centering them, resentment appears. Entitlement is not loud at first. It hides behind expectations. Stoic philosophy teaches that no one owns your attention but you. Yet people who depend on external validation often treat attention as a resource they deserve, not one that must be earned. This entitlement usually forms quietly over time. You listened, you supported, you responded quickly, you gave emotional labor freely, without realizing it. They internalize this as the default. So when you shift, when you grow, set boundaries, or redirect your focus, they don't see it as a healthy change. They see it as a violation. In their mind, you didn't evolve, you withdrew. And withdrawal, to the entitled, feels like betrayal. At first, it looks like confusion. You've been distant lately. Why don't you talk like you used to? Did I do something wrong? But beneath these questions is an accusation: why aren't you available to me anymore? When reassurance doesn't restore access, frustration follows. They become passive-aggressive. They guilt-trip. They question your character. You change. You don't care anymore. You think you're too busy now. These are not requests for connection, they are demands for control. Imagine someone who used to call or message you constantly. You always replied. You always listened. Then life changes. You focus on your goals. You limit distractions. You respond when you can, not immediately. Suddenly, their tone shifts. They don't ask how you are, they accuse you of neglect. They make your boundaries the problem. Your absence becomes evidence of disrespect. In their eyes, not because you wronged them, but because they believed your attention was theirs by default. When entitlement goes unfulfilled, it transforms into resentment. They don't say, "I miss our connection." They say, "You think you're better than me." They don't say, "I feel insecure." They say, "You're selfish now." Hatred becomes easier than vulnerability. Marcus Aurelius observed that people become angry when reality fails to match their expectations. Their expectation was access. Reality changed, and instead of adapting, they blame you. People who feel entitled to your attention often struggle with emotional dependence, fear of abandonment, low internal validation. Your attention regulated their emotions. When it disappears, they feel destabilized. Instead of self-regulating, they externalize the discomfort, and you become the target. This is why your calm refusal to over-engage feels like rejection even though you never rejected them. If guilt doesn't work, they escalate. They talk about you to others. They provoke reactions. They create drama to pull you back in. Why? Because attention, even negative attention, restores their sense of importance. Your silence threatens their identity. Stoicism does not teach withdrawal from people, it teaches discernment. You choose where your energy goes. You choose how accessible you are. You choose when to engage. You do not apologize for protecting your time. You do not explain boundaries to those who refuse to respect them. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." Translation: you don't need to justify focus to those who benefit from your distraction. No one who respects you feels entitled to you. Respect says, engage when you can. Entitlement says, engage because I expect it. And expectation, when unmet, reveals character. If someone hates you because you no longer give them unlimited access, they never valued you, they valued what you provided. Let them feel uncomfortable. Let them adjust or exit. Your attention is your life. Spend it intentionally, not under pressure. Those who truly belong will never demand what should be freely given. 8. They avoid giving you credit. One of the most subtle but insidious behaviors of people who hate you for no reason is their refusal to acknowledge your contributions. It isn't always blatant. They may nod politely, smile, or even offer a hollow compliment, but when it comes to real recognition, they disappear. Your ideas, your efforts, your successes, all vanish from their narrative. This isn't just rudeness. It's a calculated avoidance of truth. It's a way to preserve their own ego while keeping you small. People who refuse to give credit are often insecure. Your accomplishments highlight their own stagnation. Acknowledging you would force them to confront what they haven't done, what they've avoided, or where they failed to grow. In other words, giving credit is a mirror, and they hate mirrors. Stoic philosophy teaches that people act according to what they believe is right for themselves, not for you. Their refusal to recognize your work is not about fairness, it's about maintaining a sense of superiority and comfort. This behavior shows itself in many ways: taking credit for your work or ideas, speaking about your achievements without naming you, dismissing your input in meetings or discussions, ignoring your role when accomplishments are celebrated. Notice the pattern, it's consistent. The moment recognition could elevate you, they redirect it, downplay it, or erase it entirely. Imagine you've spent weeks developing a strategy at work. You put in late nights, careful planning, and creative thinking. The project succeeds and delivers results. In a meeting, instead of acknowledging your effort, someone says, "This was a great team effort. We all contributed." On the surface, it seems fair, but you know who led the initiative. You know who worked tirelessly to make it happen. And so does everyone else, except the one who refuses to give credit. Sometimes they even frame it in a way that subtly diminishes your role. "Well, your name helped a little, but most of the credit goes to." Every omission is intentional. Every minimization is a silent assertion: you do not deserve to be elevated. Avoiding giving credit isn't just disrespectful, it's a tool of control. It keeps you dependent on validation from others. It prevents your influence from expanding naturally. It maintains their social or professional dominance. People who do this don't need to succeed themselves, they just need to ensure that you don't shine more brightly than them. The Stoics understood the value of internal validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't hanker after what others think of you." When someone refuses to give you credit, your first response should not be anger or defensiveness. Recognition is external, and external validation is never guaranteed. Instead, focus on maintaining integrity in your work, letting results speak for themselves. Quietly elevate yourself without seeking acknowledgement. Your work stands on its own. If it's genuine, the world eventually sees it. People who avoid giving credit are not your judges. They are mirrors of insecurity, envy, and fear. They fear your competence because it reminds them of their own inaction. Every omission, every slight, every minimization is a reflection of their character, not yours. Your job is simple: do the work, keep your integrity, let their avoidance reveal their weakness, not yours. Giving credit is a choice. So is taking offense. You are stronger when you choose neither. You simply continue building. 9. They assume you have hidden motives. One of the most insidious behaviors of people who hate you for no reason is their constant suspicion. No matter how straightforward, generous, or kind you are, they assume you have an ulterior motive. Every action you take is dissected, reinterpreted, and reframed to fit a narrative where you are somehow manipulating, scheming, or plotting against them. This isn't curiosity. It isn't even caution. It's projection. They see their own tendencies reflected in you, whether or not you share them. People who assume hidden motives are usually deeply insecure or morally rigid. They have trouble believing that someone could act without self-interest or hidden agendas. Your authenticity threatens them. Your calm and integrity are proof that not everyone lives according to fear, greed, or manipulation. So to protect their worldview, they assume you must be hiding something. Stoic philosophy teaches that people interpret events not as they are, but as they themselves perceive them. In other words, their suspicion says far more about them than it does about you. This behavior can take many forms: questioning your actions unnecessarily, "Why did you do that?" or "What's the real reason behind this?" Interpreting kindness as manipulation, "Why are you helping me? What do you want in return?" Interpreting success as strategy, "You only did that to make yourself look good." Distrusting neutrality, "Why didn't you pick a side? You must be plotting something." Notice the pattern: they rarely ask questions to understand, they ask questions to justify their distrust. Imagine you help a colleague solve a problem at work. You do it quietly without seeking attention because it benefits the team. Instead of gratitude, you hear, "Why are you doing this? Are you trying to make me look bad? Are you hoping the boss will notice you more than me?" Even when your actions are selfless, they interpret them through a lens of suspicion. Their question is not curiosity, it's a judgment. It frames your integrity as deception. Assuming hidden motives serves a defensive purpose, protection from disappointment. If they believe everyone has an agenda, then every slight or failure seems justified. Control through distrust. By questioning your intentions, they destabilize your position in their mind, making you easier to dismiss or manipulate emotionally. And projection of their flaws. They often assume others act like them. If they lie, cheat, or manipulate, they believe everyone must do the same. This behavior is never about truth, it's about maintaining a worldview where they feel in control. Your integrity and authenticity make them uncomfortable. They cannot grasp the idea that someone can act without self-interest. Every neutral action you take, every calm, measured, or disciplined choice threatens their assumptions. Their default conclusion: you must be plotting something. This is why silence, boundaries, or even success can provoke suspicion. They are not responding to reality, they are reacting to fear. Stoicism teaches detachment from the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone does wrong, it is because they are misguided, not because of you." When someone assumes you have hidden motives, don't over-explain. Explanations feed suspicion. Don't defend yourself. Defense implies wrongdoing. Continue acting with integrity. Your actions are their own proof. Their assumption does not define you, their distrust reflects their own character flaws. People who assume hidden motives fear transparency. They feel vulnerable when faced with someone who acts openly and sincerely. By projecting deception onto you, they preserve their sense of security, even if it means hating you for it. Your authenticity is not negotiable. Their suspicion is not your burden. Act with integrity. Stay consistent. Stay calm. Those who assume you are hiding something reveal their own inner turmoil. Do not participate in it. Remain untouchable by projection. 10. They never confront you directly. Some people hate you for reasons they cannot articulate. Some people hate you simply because you exist as yourself. But one of the most revealing patterns of such individuals is their refusal to confront you directly. Instead of speaking openly about issues, disagreements, or resentments, they choose subtler, more indirect methods. Passive aggression, gossip, veiled comments, and social manipulation replace honest conversation. This avoidance is not accidental. It is a calculated tactic to maintain control while protecting themselves from accountability. There are a few reasons people refuse direct confrontation. Fear of losing control. Facing someone directly requires vulnerability. If they confront you, they might receive a response they cannot manipulate, and avoidance allows them to retain a sense of power. Insecurity. They fear being exposed, embarrassed, or corrected. Direct engagement might reveal their shortcomings. And projection. If they are prone to dishonesty or manipulation, confronting honesty would require qualities they lack. It is easier to attack indirectly. The result: you are left in the dark, trying to decipher the hostility while they remain shielded. Refusing direct confrontation can look like passive-aggressive comments disguised as jokes or advice, gossiping or sharing opinions about you with others instead of addressing you, ignoring issues entirely and letting resentment fester silently, acting cold or dismissive without explanation. Notice the pattern: there is no opportunity for dialogue. They control the narrative while avoiding responsibility. Imagine a colleague who resents you for receiving recognition at work. Instead of saying, "I don't like that you got promoted instead of me," they choose indirect methods. They spread subtle doubts about your contribution. "I'm not sure they did all that themselves." They withhold collaboration opportunities. They exclude you from conversations where decisions are being made. To outsiders, it may seem like normal workplace friction, but the effect is clear: you are being undermined without ever being confronted. People who avoid confrontation are often guided by ego and fear, not fairness or logic. Direct engagement would require honesty, accountability, and emotional resilience, qualities they often lack. Avoidance also allows them to maintain a moral illusion. They can say, "I didn't do anything, they just overreacted," while secretly projecting blame and resentment onto you. In short, indirect hostility protects their ego while keeping you in a position of uncertainty. Open conflict, though uncomfortable, is honest. You know where you stand. You can respond, defend yourself, or disengage. Indirect attacks, however, are corrosive. They create confusion, self-doubt, and anxiety. You spend time questioning your actions, replaying interactions, and trying to understand the unspoken rules, all while the person who hates you remains untouched. The lack of confrontation keeps you in a perpetual state of uncertainty. That uncertainty is the real power they seek. The Stoic approach is simple, detached from the need for acknowledgement and control over others' behavior. You cannot force honesty. You cannot demand clarity. You cannot change their character. What you can do is maintain integrity in all interactions. Respond calmly if directly addressed. Avoid being baited into emotional reactions. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Indirect hostility says more about them than it does about you. Their silence and evasions reflect fear, insecurity, and weakness. People who never confront you directly are attempting to control perception without accountability. Their goal is emotional leverage. When you recognize this pattern, you gain freedom. You no longer chase understanding, approval, or justification. You no longer try to guess the hidden rules. Direct confrontation is courageous. Avoidance is a tactic. Do not chase those who refuse honesty. Do not allow their indirect attacks to disturb your calm. Their evasion is a mirror of insecurity. Your response is mastery. Remain steady, unwavering, and unbothered. Hatred without reason is one of life's most confusing and unsettling experiences. When someone dislikes you for no tangible cause, it can feel personal, unfair, even threatening. But as we've seen through these behaviors, the truth is far more revealing. People who hate you for no reason are not responding to you. They are reacting to their own insecurities, fears, and unacknowledged weaknesses. They see your growth, your peace, your boundaries, and your discipline. And they cannot tolerate the mirror you hold up to their lives. Stoicism teaches us a fundamental truth: we cannot control the actions or opinions of others. Only our own responses. Their behavior, no matter how hurtful or confusing, is theirs to manage, not yours. So what do? Observe. Don't internalize. Recognize the patterns of hostility without letting them define your self-worth. Maintain your integrity. Continue acting with honesty, discipline, and composure. Your behavior is your own, it cannot be stolen or corrupted by resentment. Protect your peace. Set boundaries. Limit unnecessary exposure and refuse to participate in manipulative dynamics. Let time reveal the truth. Those who misjudge you will eventually expose their own flaws, and your consistency will shine in contrast. Remember, their hatred is a reflection of themselves, not a verdict on your value. You do not need their approval, their understanding, or even their acknowledgement. Live deliberately. Grow consistently. Remain calm. Let your life speak louder than their words ever could. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harm. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. In other words, the ultimate power over those who hate you for no reason is to remain unshaken, unbothered, and entirely yourself. Rise above the noise. Stay true. And let your peace be undeniable. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below, tell me which behavior you've noticed most. Your stories help shape future videos here on Stoic Code. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this content matters. Until next time, stay focused, stay calm, and keep building.